What is up, guys? It's Cory B here, and we are back with episode 2, lesson 2 of our Cory's coding stream, videos, series, maybe. Today we're going to be looking at if statements, and in particular how we can use them with our Final Fantasy 7 program we started creating in the last video. So if you haven't seen the last video, episode 1, make sure you watch that first, because a lot of what's going to be in this program might not make sense unless you revisit that. And what we're going to look at today is going to be a really short video. It's just how we structure if statements to set up an counter that we're going to explore in another video later on. So what I want to do is to kind of set the tone for you really quickly, and as the music fades out here, what we're going to do is bring on stream really quickly Final Fantasy 7, the original version, back on the PlayStation 1. It's PS4 gameplay. It's a YouTube video that I'm grabbing here, so I just want to show it for you so you can see what to expect in terms of visual representation of the game. So this is way back. Now, visual quality, it wasn't as amazing back then, right? So Cloud Strife, our main character, will appear in due time. Bear with me. There's Barrett that we looked at in the first stream, and there is our main character, Cloud Strife. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it, in essence, this first part of the game and program the first section using if statements, and whether or not we want to take this battle right here. We're going to set that up today. I'm going to pause this here because we're going to come back to this in the next episode. All right, no Dr. J, I apologize. We're going to come back to that in the next stream. We're going to talk about battle systems and how we can use that using functions, etc. But I don't want to get onto that today. I just want to focus on the if statements. So if you cast your mind back to when we were looking at the first video and programming our character name, our health, etc., multipliers, we did that using variables, and we discussed the different data types that were available. Okay, now it's important to remember that we already have that set up and we want a continuation from this point. So we're going to just drop down here a couple of lines, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop a lesson 2 and then if statements. Now what I want to do in this section is literally just outline the way in which an if statement works and how they can be used based upon a condition. Now it's really straightforward, okay? Now you're going to need a variable to run with normally on an if statement, because we have to check a condition against a certain measure. For instance, I could say, if we chose to fight in this situation, all right, now I know this the kind of battle system that happens, the enemies just run out and you're forced into that battle, but I want you to imagine that you could choose whether or not you did that fight. So if you said yes, or if you actually ran to those characters, those on-screen enemies, that you would initiate the battle scene. And if you chose to run away, or you said no, that you could escape that. Okay? So we'll consider it from a text-based focus at the moment. Okay? So I'll do a print statement here. This section of the program. Actually, no, let's step back. Let's go. We won't do this section of the program. We'll say enemies approach from the reactor. We'll talk about the reactor and stuff like that at Final Fantasy 7 in the next video. Approach from the reactor. What will you do? Now, what we want to do is to create a variable right now that will allow us to say yes or no, and we'll do that using our input command from before. Now if you remember, we could do this. We could create a variable, so this one was called char2, and create an input that was set to a default string. That's what we want to do here. So we could have choice equals input. We'll open our speech marks, and then inside our speech marks we're going to put the text that's going to appear on the screen. So if I want to say, I can say, will you fight? I'm going to put in apostrophes, or run. Okay, and then we'll put a question mark at the end. Now I'm going to put a space Because a lot of times when this appears on screen, my students are like, so it has to be a press a space, and they press a space for that answer. You don't want that. You really don't want that. You want to make sure that space is included inside your print statement or your input statement. It just makes sure that no one does anything crazy and they don't try and do a space first when they're doing the input, alright? So we've got that there, which is fine for the moment. And what we need to do now is start to formulate our if statement. So I talked about it before, and I said that it's based on an if a value meets a certain condition. That's how it's structured. So I'm just giving you a bit of a space here. So what we want to say is if our choice, so that's our variable that we're referencing, is equal to something. Now, the way we always remember this and the way I teach my students to remember this is that equal to is represented by two equals. It's exactly the same backwards, right? So if I do two equals now, if our choice is equal to a value, now the value that we want to represent, there are two at the moment. It's fight or run. We're going to come back to run in a second. So if we choose fight, because it's a string they're going to have to type in, we're going to put fight in there. Now, every if statement, the ones that we come on to in a moment, I was going to say them, but I'm going to avoid it for the moment. Every if statement has to end with a colon. All right, that is the correct syntax. So I've formulated this if statement correctly currently. What I need now is something to be inside this if statement. So what is going to happen if I do fight? So what I'm going to do for the moment, and this is just for this video, the next video we'll look at actually completing some of this code. I'm going to put a print statement that says battle begin ... All right, so I'm going to put that there. So that is our if statement. That if statement will work. So we can run this now really quickly. What's the name of your character? Right, let's do Barrett. This is, I think, for our second one. HP 100, and then we'll do 2.5 for the multiplier, exactly the same. Enemies approach from the reactor. What will you do? We can fight or we can run. Now, if I type in fight, now bear in mind, I've typed in fight with a capital F here. If I type in fight, battle begin. So that actual if statement has executed and does work. Okay. Now what you might say is actually, well, how are we going to get the run to work, or how are we going to restrict other things from being done? And we can do that really easily. There are two other parts of an if statement. Okay. There are I want to say consequent or consequential decisions that you could have. Alright, so for instance, if I say fight, that does one thing. However, if I say this thing, it should do something else. Now, the way we format that in Python in particular is by using an elif. Some people call it elif. I call it elif. So we type an elif, and it's exactly the same as an if statement. It just has an E and an L in the front. So elif, our choice, and again, is equal to two equals. Our second value that we want to represent. So if they type in run, then we want it to do something different. So our colon at the end of the elif line there, so the end of the if statement, and then a print statement that says you ran away from the fight, and then we'll say no XP gained from the fight. We'll do a print statement that says no XP gained. All right, we'll put the exclamation marks for extra emphasis there. Right, I'm going to scroll down a little bit so you guys can see this. Now, the final part of this and the structure of an if statement is something that you have to have if you want to prevent your program or if statement specifically from breaking. So you have to give the program an opportunity to be able to do something else if this goes wrong. So a lot of times my students say, so I've got a loop, I've got my program looping, the if and the elif work, but if I type in something random, the program instantly goes blah, because I don't know what to do. It doesn't know what to do. Okay, so you have to cater to that. We're making something that is going to cater to every option. So we've got two options catered to now. We now need to cater to everything else. And that is our keyword and our final keyword for today. So an else statement is just like that, right? So this is going to be anything else that they type in, numbers, letters, space, randomly, just press and enter. Then we can ask them, or we can tell them the command isn't recognized and they need to enter that again. Okay, now the only thing I'm going to need, and again, like I said before, if statements, elif statements, and our else's have to end with a colon. Now, the thing you'll recognize with the else here is that it doesn't need anything else, excuse the pun, afterwards. There are no conditions that need to be met because this is anything else. All right, it's literally anything else that you choose to do at this moment, it will execute this line of code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to indent. I'm going to do a print statement. Sorry, your input was not recognized. Okay. So that will output for me. Now there are a couple of things that I want to highlight because we've got the if, the elif, and our else outlined now. So this is what I would call a complete if statement that has been fully completed. There are 3 sections, and there are a couple of things that I want you to remember in the structure of an if statement. So first and foremost, our if statements and each line must end with a colon. It has to be the case. If it doesn't end with a colon, it won't recognize it's an if statement. It will give you an invalid syntax. So if I do this now, underlined. So again, massive shout out to Replit for putting that functionality into a live editor, right? It gives you that flag straight away. So our colon must be there. Now the other thing that you want to be aware of, especially when dealing with if statements, is the need to indent code. Okay, so I want you to have a look at each if, elif, or else section. Anytime you have that if condition, you must have your code indented inside of that will be executed when that thing happens. So if we choose fight, the battle begin that should appear has to be indented. It will only execute here if it has been indented and if it is inside this block. Okay, and that is exactly the same with our elif and our else. So one of the things that I know that when I teach if statements and the structure of them and the way in which they're supposed to be formulated is that students don't necessarily understand that they need to be in that format. So when you're going through and you're checking your errors, you're thinking, well, why is this not working? I don't understand. Check that first. Okay, so if I show you this, and we'll just literally run through the program really quickly, I am going to just comment out the section before, so I don't have to input that again. So you've probably just seen there, 3 speech marks, and then 3 closing speech marks will comment out a large amount of your code, so you don't have to run that should you choose not to. Right now, just quickly, it's highlighted the error here for me. So if I hover over this, expected an indented block. So even though I haven't run it, the environment's telling me, listen, this isn't going to work. Now if I try to run it, indentation error, expected an indented block, and it highlights that for me. So straight away, when you look back at your code, you're saying, okay, right, this print statement has something wrong with it. It's not indented, and that's where it needs to be. Okay. So I will run this just really quickly so you can see it. We'll go for run this time. So you ran away from the fight, no XP gained, and we'll just test the else just so you can see. If I press the number 2 and enter, sorry, your input was not recognized. Now what we want to do is start to program that so it starts to facilitate other things. For instance, allowing us to retype our answer in, but we will factor that stuff in the videos to come. So what I want to do is say at this point, if you're watching the video and you kind of get or have a little bit more of an understanding of how to construct and formulate your statements, leave a comment below. Let me know. If you've got some stresses with any other programs, you're thinking, oh, I don't know how this works, or there's something going on here, I'm not necessarily sure, just hit me up. Let me know. It's always interesting to find out the different problems that people have with their programs and to learn that little bit more. If you want to and you like the video, please leave a like. I appreciate it always. And if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you subscribe for many more program videos to come. We've got so many more videos and a whole nother series that I've got planned as well. So I'm super excited. It's a really good time to be involved in programming and to want to learn to program. So if you're enjoying the content, like, share and subscribe. I'd appreciate it to the max. And I'll see you in the next video. Peace.